For centuries, skeptics have challenged Christianity. Atheists, Muslims, Jews, and other worldviews claim the Bible is corrupted, Jesus never existed, or God isn't real. But today, we're exposing the truth with historical facts, logic, and scripture. Let's start with some arguments we may get from atheists and agnostics. Let's start with the first atheist claim: there is no evidence for God. But the universe, morality, and logic itself prove otherwise. Science confirms the universe had a beginning. Atheism can't explain why anything exists at all. Our response? While it may sound complex, still shows the truth in our faith. The cosmological argument, as in first cause, the teleological argument, meaning fine-tuning of the universe, and the moral argument all point to God's existence. I'll back this up with a verse from the Bible, Romans 1:20. For since the creation of the world, God's invisible qualities, his eternal power and divine nature, have been clearly seen, being understood from what has been made. As for the proof, you can see in the scientific fine-tuning of the universe, the complexity of DNA, and also irreducible complexity in biology. Those plus morality all point to an intelligent designer. This second one I can think of that gets brought up by atheists often is, the Bible stories are fictional. Now, this specific one is usually brought up by people who just decided to not believe in God because they were too lazy to even glance into the Bible and to put thought into what they had heard or seen elsewhere. Our rebuttal here is real simple. Most alleged contradictions come from misunderstandings of context, culture, or in some cases even translation issues. 2 Timothy 3:16 says, all scripture is God-breathed. That's the verse I'd go to if challenged by this. Whether they agree or not isn't our concern. The proof and fact of the matter is that there is no contradiction in doctrine, and that archaeology confirms historical accuracy. Here's a list of a few discoveries to win this debate easily. First, the Dead Sea Scrolls, which were discovered from 1947 to 1956. These ancient Jewish manuscripts are dated from 3rd century BC to 1st century AD and contains portions of nearly every Old Testament book. It confirms the accuracy of biblical transmission, especially Isaiah, Psalms, and Deuteronomy, compared to modern texts. It shows that Jewish beliefs, messianic expectations, and scriptural texts align with what is seen in the New Testament. And it also confirms the reliability of the Old Testament texts and the messianic expectations during Jesus' time. Second, the Pilate stone discovered 1961. It's a limestone inscription found in Caesarea Maritima mentioning Pontius Pilate, the Roman governor who sentenced Jesus to crucifixion. The inscription reads, Pontius Pilate, prefect of Judea. This confirms the New Testament account of Pilate's role in Jesus' trial. This shows first archaeological evidence confirming Pilate's existence and governance, validating the Gospels. Third is Caiaphas ossuary, discovered in 1990. A bone box or ossuary inscribed with the name Joseph, son of Caiaphas, was found in Jerusalem. Caiaphas was the Jewish high priest who led Jesus' trial. The ornate design indicates a high-status individual, fitting the biblical description of Caiaphas. This confirms the existence of Caiaphas, a key figure in Jesus' trial, aligning with the New Testament. I can go on for a while, but quickly. Number 4 is the Pool of Bethesda, which was discovered in the 19th century. Number 5, the Pool of Siloam, discovered in 2004. Number 6, the Nazareth inscription in 1st century AD. 7, the James ossuary, also 1st century AD. 8, the House of Peter in Capernaum, which was underneath a Byzantine church and excavated in the 1960s. Number 9, the City of David and Hezekiah's Tunnel, which a Siloam inscription confirms its construction around 700 BC, and will stop at number 10. Evidence found of Roman crucifixions from the 1st century AD. Number 3 is one that many non-believers bring up before hearing evidence that opposes their thoughts. Next on the list is Jesus never existed. This one is fun to debunk with evidence showing otherwise. Our rebuttal, without hesitation, is bringing up the fact that Jesus is one of the most historically documented figures in antiquity. Saying this probably won't be enough for the challenger to comprehend, so we continue by mentioning the Bible verses from 1 Corinthians 15:3 through 6. The first part of verse 6 says, "After that, he appeared to more than 500 of the brothers and sisters at the same time." We can easily tell them to check the proof themselves by doing their own research on non-Christian sources like Tacitus, Josephus, and Pliny the Younger, who are just some to confirm Jesus' existence. But since they are trying their hardest to debunk Jesus, we can go the extra mile and start with Tacitus. He was a Roman historian who wrote about Emperor Nero's persecution of Christians after the Great Fire of Rome in 64 AD. In his Annals, in Book 15, Chapter 44, written in 116 AD, he mentions Christ and his execution under Pontius Pilate. It reads, "Christus, from whom the name Christian had its origin, suffered the extreme penalty during the reign of Tiberius at the hands of one of our procurators, Pontius Pilate, and a most mischievous superstition, thus checked for the moment, again broke out not only in Judea, the first source of the evil, but even in Rome." So that we're clear, let's remind them what this confirms. One, and most importantly, Jesus, Christus, existed. 2. He was executed under Pontius Pilate during the reign of Tiberius. And 3, his followers, Christians, spread his teachings even after his death. Next, Josephus was a Jewish historian who wrote Antiquities of the Jews in 93 to 94 AD. He made 2 references to Jesus. A. The Testimonium Flavianum. In Antiquities, in Book 18, Chapter 3, Section 3, Josephus writes, "Now there was about this time Jesus, a wise man, if it be lawful to call him a man, for he was a doer of wonderful works, a teacher of such men as receive the truth with pleasure. He drew over to him both many of the Jews and many of the Gentiles. He was the Christ. And when Pilate, at the suggestion of the principal men among us, had condemned him to the cross, those that loved him at the first did not forsake him, for he appeared to them alive again the 3rd day, as the divine prophets had foretold these and 10,000 other wonderful things concerning him." He also references James, the brother of Jesus. In Antiquities, Book 20, Chapter 9 and Section 1, Josephus mentions Jesus again when describing the execution of James. "So Ananus, a high priest, assembled the Sanhedrin of judges and brought before them the brother of Jesus, who was called Christ, whose name was James, and some others. And when he had formed an accusation against them as breakers of the law, he delivered them to be stoned." These passages confirms Jesus had a brother named James, indicates Jesus was known as Christ, and affirms that James was a real historical figure executed by Jewish leaders. Quickly, we can end this challenge by bringing up the example of Pliny, who was a Roman governor of Bithynia, modern-day Turkey, who wrote to Emperor Trajan around 112 AD about how to deal with Christians. In Letters, Book 10, Letter 96, he describes Christian practices. They were accustomed to meet on a fixed day before dawn and sing responsively a hymn to Christ as to a god, and to bind themselves by oath, not to some crime, but not to commit fraud, theft, or adultery, not falsify their trust, nor to refuse to return a trust when called upon to do so. When this was over, it was their custom to depart and to assemble again to partake of food, but ordinary and innocent food. The significance. This passage confirms that early Christians worshipped Jesus as a god, met regularly for worship, and followed strict moral teachings. I saved the best for last. I'm sure you can tell by the length of the rebuttal to this claim by non-believers. I hope you enjoyed this video, and you're ready for more like it coming soon on our YouTube channel. Be sure to subscribe if you haven't, and always stand firm in the faith.